When I first started my business, my biggest problem as a software engineer wasn't necessarily how to code, but rather what to code. What product do I build? And so in this video, what I want to show you is the exact framework that I used to build my business and scale it to $7 million a year in annually recurring revenue, with us doing about $600,000 in the last month alone. So without further ado, let's jump straight into it. And if you're thinking, will this work for you? It 100% will, because there's countless other people that this has worked for and they have gotten results with this exact framework. So let's take a look at an overview of what we'll be discussing. So first and foremost, we'll discuss how you can 10x your impact, growth, and income using what I call the unique advantage framework. And then we'll watch me use the unique advantage framework live such that you can see how I did it for my business. And last but not least, we'll get to how you can use this framework yourself for your own business to then create it and scale it to 7 figures. So let's jump straight into why the unique advantage framework. Because you see, similar to how success leaves clues, failure does as well. So we first need to understand why we should use the unique advantage framework versus what everybody else is telling you or versus what's out there in the world right now. And for us to do that, let's first take a look at some startup facts that pretty much most software engineers will have to eventually realize. And those are as follows. So B2C startups are a lot more likely to fail than B2B startups. Non-tech co-founders fail more than tech co-founders. Co-founders who don't talk to customers before building anything fail more than co-founders who talk to customers every single day. And last but not least, most B2B SaaS is a giant bubble. What I mean by that is there's really two kinds of B2B SaaS, and they're both wrappers. So one is wrapped around an AWS service, whereas the other is usually wrapped around an OpenAI API. And instead of saying that these are SaaS, I think it's more appropriate to say that this is software arbitrage because somebody else made the software and other people are sort of white labeling it, right? Now, that's not to say this is wrong or incorrect because we as software engineers have been taught from day one, never reinvent the wheel if you don't have to. But what this does lead to is a bunch of copycats. So everybody, like sheep, is copying one another. One person says start an AI agency, they do that. One person says start a custom software development agency, they do that. One person says start a SaaS, they do that. And everybody, like sheep following each other off a cliff, ends up failing due to the same exact reasons. And funnily enough, over 50% of the YC companies fall under these two categories. So what is our solution? We talked about the problem. What is our actual solution? Well, that's where the unique advantage comes into play. So let's take a look and see what the unique advantage really consists of. First and foremost, the first part of a unique advantage is your experience, so your skills and your knowledge. And then it's your network, so your connections and relationships. And last but not least, it's your location, so your physical or digital presence. And the combination of these three things, your experience, your network, and your location, makes up what I call the unique advantage. And so the unique advantage framework, the goal is to utilize your unique advantage to find opportunities that you can capitalize on. And ideally speaking, these opportunities would be ones where we, or in this case you, are the best fit to capitalize on them. And nobody else in the world is better fit to solve that specific problem or to pursue that specific opportunity that you found utilizing your unique advantage. And as a result, we would essentially 10x our income, our growth, and our impact without much extra work or any crazy changes in our life. And this is largely because I hear a lot of people say that, oh, if you could make more money, you would. Or if you were capable of making $100,000 a month, you already would be making $100,000 a month. And while this does hold some truth to it, I've personally found that most individuals can make a lot more money, have a lot more impact, and experience a lot more growth, not by necessarily learning new skills, but by simply being more resourceful with the resources that they already have. Now, that's not to say you shouldn't learn new skills, but rather is to say that you yourself, you're currently capable of having more money, more impact, and more growth simply by being more resourceful. So let's talk about how I personally use the Unique Advantage framework to create AB Analytics, the 7-figure B2B consulting firm. So pretty much my transition from the traditional software engineer making 6 figures to now making $600,000 in a month, that took me less than 5 years to achieve. But how exactly did I do that? Well, it's actually by using the Unique Advantage framework. So let's take a look and see what I did. First and foremost, I needed to analyze my skills. Okay, I needed to look at my experience, my life experience in general, my hard skills, my technical skills, my soft skills, right, and my knowledge. And that's exactly what I did. So turns out I had a lot of skills once I put it in writing, right? So my background is in electrical and computer engineering, so I have a lot of experience with regards to robotics and electrical engineering. But funnily enough, I mean, the job that I was doing and what I was getting paid for was full stack development, right? Specifically MERN. And I did do a lot of data analytics and ML projects, right, on the side on my own free time because I just enjoyed it. So what ended up happening is I had three sets of unique skills: full stack development, data analytics slash ML slash LLMs, right? And of course, last but not least, robotics and electrical engineering. So the first two I could do remotely, right? And that's what I was doing it with my job. It was essentially full stack development as a consultant, right? And the last one, robotics slash electrical engineering, I would have to be in person for because there's not much remote work you can do in those specific fields. So I was faced with a decision. Like I had a lot of skills I could work with, but in reality, I mean, I was only making money from one of these skills, right? And then the other was pretty much a waste, right? Even though I had a degree for it, I wasn't necessarily using it for anything crazy. Now, it's true, you can say, okay, these skills might be transferable, and that's exactly how you should take a look at your skills as well. If you have any that you're not necessarily making money of, but some things are transferable, that's completely fine. But in my case, I had to kind of swallow the pill and admit that, okay, I have a lot of skills I can work with, but I need to choose one that will be to my advantage in whatever I decide to do. And as for my soft skills, I mean, I was a very good communicator and I also had a lot of consulting experience for my day job. In terms of knowledge and just life experience, I mean, I was familiar with cryptocurrencies. I even took out subsidized loans from my university to invest in the crypto market. I had a little bit of experience with e-commerce. I had a few e-commerce ventures, right? And last but not least, I had a lot of experience with custom software development because I took on a lot of agency work with regards to software development. That's why I constantly tell people don't get into custom software development, at least not in the traditional sense. And I also was familiar with software consulting since I consulted a lot of Fortune 500 companies on enterprise level software. And I also met a lot of stakeholders, communicated with them. So while I had knowledge in the business world, I only had knowledge with regards to Fortune 500 companies. I didn't have too much knowledge around startups or small and medium sized businesses. And if you're interested in actually seeing what my skills were specifically, I have a link down below where you can go and check out all my projects. So my AI and ML projects, my full stack development projects, my robotics projects. I even have a few published research papers in robotics, as well as a few other miscellaneous computer engineering projects. But nevertheless, the next thing I had to do was take a look at my network, right? So who my connections were and any relationships that I had. And funnily enough, it wasn't anything out of the ordinary. I mean, I had a few fellow software engineers from university that I could reach out to, a few coworkers, a few managers I knew, and of course, a few Fortune 500 stakeholders that I knew from work. And last but not least, my family and friends. So last thing I had to take a look at was my location, my physical and my digital presence. I live in Los Angeles, so that was my location. And in terms of my digital presence, I had no social media whatsoever at the time, right? Even YouTube, I started 5 to 6 months ago. So, kind of considering everything together, I looked at it and I thought, you know what? It seems I have like average resources, maybe even below average, right? And I always had different excuses. Always because I came to the US later. Oh, it's because English was my second language. Oh, because of this. I had all these excuses. But what I ended up realizing as I dug deeper and I started to write down more things, I started to brainstorm about it more. A couple of days went by, a couple of weeks went by. I realized it wasn't necessarily a resource issue, but rather it was a resourcefulness issue. So I had what I considered to be quote unquote average resources, but in reality, I had a lot more resources than I was initially aware of. And not only that, I wasn't properly utilizing my resources, right? Especially, for example, as my physical location. So that's exactly what I did. I started using my unique advantage to actually build my business. And this is how the framework goes. So I pulled everything together, right? So I put together everything that I had, my skills, my network, as well as my location, right? And I took a look at my skills and I said, okay, I have an electrical engineering degree. I have all this work I've done for NASA, UCLA, and robotics, right? I've got to scrap it. And to me, like it was a very hard decision because I essentially had to make peace with knowing the fact that this knowledge would be wasted in a sense, right? I'm not going to make any money off it. But I had to make that choice because I needed to rely on either my full stack skills or my data analytics slash ML slash AI skills to make a living, right? Because I already had experience with those and I was already making a living with those. So I knew those were at least verified and stood the test of time. And I realized, okay, I have to choose between my full stack and data analytics skills And whichever one I choose, I'm going to have to pair that with my communication and consulting skills. So ideally, whatever I choose should incorporate at least all the aspects together. And then I took a look at my network. I mean, I didn't have a crazy network, right? As I mentioned before, possibly even slightly below average. And one of the reasons for that was because I didn't socialize much in university. I was always locked in my room, either working or, grinding out classes. But I did know a few business owners, some successful, some not so successful, via my friends and general acquaintances that I knew. And last but not least was my location. I mean, I was located in LA, right, known as the City of Angels, and I would witness it every time I would drive by or something. There's local businesses were everywhere. And an absurd amount of money was concentrated in every single city within LA. So Glendale, Burbank, Pasadena, Beverly Hills, right, Hollywood, every single day. Like there was not a day where I could go an hour, let's say, on the street and not see a supercar or a hypercar. At least a car that's worth $300,000, $400,000, right? So at the time that was like double my yearly salary. So I knew there's something special about my location, and I knew there has to be some way I can use my skills, my network, and my location to make more money than I'm making now, to have more impact than I'm having now, and to grow more as a person. All I had to do was brainstorm it. And that's exactly what I did. And what ended up happening is after I pulled everything together, I noticed that all the Fortune 500 companies that I worked for had an in-house data analytics team. But all the local small and medium-sized businesses that I observed did not have such a team. And I realized that's where my unique advantage lies. I can use my AI and ML data analytics knowledge, pair that with my consulting and coding skills to make something for these specific small and medium-sized businesses in my local area. And I struck gold, right? The problem that I chose to solve was this. Small and medium-sized businesses did not have the funds to hire full-time data analysts, nor the justification to do so because they had a lack of data. And if I could somehow connect the dots between the two, I could bring immense value to them and a lot of money to me. And that's exactly what I did. So now we help small and medium-sized businesses. We set up a data pipeline for them so they're able to actually gather data, accurate data at that. And we also help them analyze that data through our SaaS, which then we use for actual consulting, right? We tell them, hey, your customers are churning at this rate. You need to change this, this, and this. Or let's say your LTV could be way higher. You need to make these changes. Or let's say your marketing spend isn't too ideal, right? We can optimize this and this. But there's a lot of different ways that we help these businesses. And we do that through essentially connecting a data pipeline to them and then analyzing that same exact data and telling them what to do based on the data, right? So we have literally the smartest decision making for any business, right? And after a few clients, I realized that this was my unique advantage. Nobody else could replicate what I'm doing because nobody else had the same experience that I had. And if they did, they maybe weren't in my location because at the time when I did this, I was the only one in LA that actually did this. So, how can you kind of apply what I did and do it yourself such that you can come up with a seven-figure business? Well, let's get into it. And if you're wondering, does this actually work? It actually does. I had a viewer of mine send me an email that said at first they thought it would be impossible, but now they have a list of over 30 businesses that they can help. And now they're actually working on building projects for them. So this definitely does work. All you need to do is just listen. Now, all of you watching have these unique advantages that can 10x your income, growth, and impact. And for you to be resourceful enough to use them, you first have to understand what resources are available to you at this current moment in time. So what I want you to do is write down the experiences, right? So this could mean both technical experiences, life experiences, just any knowledge in general, right? And then I want you to write down your network, who you know in your network, first degree connections, second degree connections, third degree connections. And last but not least, I want you to put down your location. You can do your physical location alongside maybe your digital presence. And in your location, analyze, okay, is the city that I'm in maybe famous for a specific industry? Or what type of businesses are in my city? Do we have a chamber of commerce in my city? Just ask yourself these questions and try to understand the location that you're really living in to the T, right? Try to understand, okay, are there any local business meetups? Are there any other type of meetups that are near me that I might not be aware of right now? What resources are available to me such that I can be resourceful enough to use them? And I want you to take at least 1 to 2 weeks with this, right? Write down everything in the experience section, everything in the network section, and everything in the location section. And at the very end, pull everything together and just spend a week or two thinking about it. How you can apply these three things to finding a specific problem or a specific opportunity to capitalize on. One of the best examples I always like to give is I had a call with a software engineer and he wanted to get into fintech. He wanted to make a SaaS for fintech. And when I was talking with him, I'm like, man, why do you want to get into fintech? I mean, it's from the looks of it, you don't have any experience in it. What is it? He said, oh, I actually like it. I did some crypto stuff. I did some stock stuff, interested in trading, this and that. I'm like, cool. Why don't you just tell me about, your family, parents, just life in general to see if you have a network or experience in other things. And he said, well, my father is in the shrimping industry. And I said, okay, how many software engineers do you know that are in the shrimping industry? He thought about it and he said, zero. I said, that's your unique advantage. You can get into a business, right? You can solve a problem that nobody else can really solve because there's going to be no software engineer in these specific cases. And behold, he did a little bit of research and he understood that nothing is even automated at his dad's shrimping business, right? They're still doing everything by hand on paper. And this is just one example. You can imagine that if you actually take this exercise seriously and do this yourself, you'll find so many opportunities. And the best thing about this, guys, is that you don't have to compete with other people, right? Everybody's trying to copy one another, everybody's trying to do the same thing. But you don't have to, right? Just do the unique advantage exercise. See maybe what's in your local market. Even just helping local businesses is more than enough to pretty much get to up to $100 million a year, I would say, right? But nevertheless, just do this exercise. See who you might know or what experiences you might have that might put you in a unique position that you only you can capitalize on. And after that, once you pretty much have everything listed out, then you need to obviously select the opportunity or problem that you're going to choose. And if you want to learn exactly how to do that and exactly how to vet which problem you should solve, then you need to watch this video next on your screen. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you learned something. If you have any questions, leave it down in the comments below. And as always, have a good one and Happy New Year.